Welcome to the podcast, where today's episode we're taking on Pokemon promo problems. Welcome to the Deep End, our captivating discussion series where we dive into the depths of the current Pokemon news and theories. And in today's episode, we've got X and Chase together as we're going to continue a discussion that started with me and Gurren about the problem with the promotional cycle of the current Pokemon atmosphere. And we're actually going to tackle on some possible solutions, some ideas that they could do to help keep hype going in the long drought that is 2024. And this is honestly a similar conversation that I had with Gurren yesterday when we were recording, because we went over the exact similar topics. I mean, we didn't go over the exact same points, but as far as the topic of the secondary part of the conversation,
they have changed their marketing away from something that can generate actual speculated rumors, things that are based off of actual things that the fans want, rather than people that are trying to grasp at straws to get clout, sending the exact same Mega Jinx, Mega Flygon, it's in the past, we're doing these things, that we're seeing on every single rumor. Just makes it feel like they're grabbing at clout because we're hungry for this information, and it really should be the Pokemon company itself releasing things to cause, let's set a fire under them, because anytime a company gets actually to a certain size, you realize that their customer base, the people that they are designing their product for, no longer becomes the fan base as much as it is the investor base. So by having a marketing system that just kind of strings us along, knowing we're going to be picking up these games, they don't have to stay on it to keep us playing, because there's not going to be any more purchases to be made.
Well, that's what I mean. I am both an investor in Nintendo. I own stock in Nintendo. As an investor, it pisses me off because I think that Pokemon Legends Arceus would have done much better had they not announced Gen 9 when they did, which would have only put more money in the company's pocket in the long term. As a player of Pokemon, I have a problem with the fact that we've got no news for a game other than 2025 on the 30th anniversary, which basically is going to mean that you're going to go ahead and drop two big games in a day and age, in a time frame where, I'm sorry, money is tight for people. You're either going to choose A or B, especially if you have to buy a brand new system on top of that. That is absolutely bonkers in my head.
What we have to look at as well, right, is if it's going to be a mid-year release for the Switch 2, you would think that they would have started marketing or, hinting at features or stuff. The only actual confirmation that we have that the Switch 2 is coming, fairly, relatively, and I use those very loosely, soon, was a tweet that someone from Nintendo made. I can't remember exactly what the tweet said, but it was very ambiguous in and of itself.
It was a low-key confirmation that there is a new system. However, they're not going to talk about it until end of the fiscal year. It'll most likely be the Switch 2 announcement, then everything they've got lined up for that system. They won't make Gen 10 a cross-generation game. They're going to put that sucker right on Switch 2 only. Pokemon Legends ZA will most likely be the cross-gen game. This way, they can hedge their bets, being the fact that if people can't afford the new system and a mainline game, there's still a game for them on the Switch, which is still going to push sales.
That's also why they're pushing it. It's ambitious.
Yeah, I do remember we have spoken about this before, and that's what convinced me that the first special edition for this successor Switch 2, whatever you want to call it, is going to be a PLZA version.
All that's going to happen is that the value for that system is going to go up through the roof, because again, anytime a Pokemon game is announced and drops, systems move. It's a power play. It is an absolute power play.
How about this play? You reveal a new mythical that's only available if you get ZL or ZA on the Switch successor, not on the original Switch. So now you get to hedge your bets by releasing it for both, but now there's an incentive to get the new console in order to get something in that community that not everyone's going to be able to get.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, but I don't agree with it because that's only going to infuriate the fan base, and in the long term wise, it's actually going to hurt if they did that. However, them putting a unique Pokemon in PLZA that you can only get in PLZA is going to be, it's right on track with everything else that they have done up until this point, because you can only get an Amoris if you've played through Pokemon Legends Arceus. You can only get Meltan, Melmetal, and Roaming Form Gimmighoul if you're playing Pokemon Go. The Galarian versions of the game, of the mythical birds, are only available in Gen 9, and you have to have the DLC for, Gen 8, and you have to have the DLC for that one, as well as the 2 new Regiforms. Like, they've been doing this.
Yeah, all of it is behind some form of a paywall. I mean, if you look at the original Let's Go, where you got the Let's Go plus ball, where it had the Mew in it.
And that, honestly, I take umbrage with as well.
Yeah, because pitched the idea as it was a good one. I just pitched it as I think that's what they're going to do. You know how simple it would be for them to just fix the marketing right now? Well, we're talking about it earlier, the image came into mind. What if they showed us a still image of an incompleted Lumiose Tower? Done. So much to talk.
I understand what you're saying. We do need like some news sprinkled more often throughout the year, but I think what they're trying to avoid is, so I think it was Sun and Moon days, all of the new Pokemon came out before the game had actually came out, so everyone knew.
They did. They released everything.
Oh, I thought there was a big leak, and then a lot of people in the community was like, no, that can't be it. That's not going to be it. That's what I heard about Incineroar. I might be wrong, though.
No, the design sheets did leak for the starters.
But what he's talking about is during the promotional cycle, it was like every week they would drop a brand new Pokemon or a brand new form, and it was just non-stop. And this is the polar opposite. We went from getting flooded with information so that the game was just meh to getting no information, and it's killing hype. But just touching base with what you said about showing the Lumiose Tower under construction, the beautiful part about that image is, if let's just say Game Freak, Nintendo, Pokemon Company did drop an image like that, it still wouldn't answer the question of whether this is taking place in the present, or in the future or in the past. Because if you had to rebuild that tower, you're going to have to strip it down.
That's exactly what I mean.
And there are a lot of reference points in the trailer that we got, and the images that we know of Lumiose Tower that don't match up. There are things that are present in the older games that are not present in the newer games, but yet the new line work for Lumiose Tower that we saw seemed more modernized to me than the original games intended. The original games designs were. And so this is why we're having the argument of whether it's in the past or whether it's in the future.
That's exactly like Chase mentioned about the Gen 7 cycle. Is they focus so much on just releasing everything that you'd want to play through and discover in the game, instead of these little hints and things like, if this is the sake and we have to rebuild the Lumiose Tower, that is something you're going to see almost right away in the game. And that's the little story hints and tidbits. They shouldn't be giving anything away, but they should be giving us topics of conversation. Showing us that incompleted Lumiose Battle Tower would leave so much speculation, but it answers absolutely no questions. Where if you start showing us Pokemon lines and stuff like that, especially brand new designs, you're going to start giving away a lot more.
So I agree with that 100%. It needs to be things similar to like what they did for PLA, where they had that sort of like research mission-y type video where, you know, the first video they put out, it was all scrambled and you couldn't actually make out what was going on. And then later on they released like a fixed version so you could see, and then that's where Hisui and Zora came in, and then you had that sort of like jump scare from that Zoroark. Because I think those types of things would be perfect, you know, not one a month, maybe like one every other month, or, you know, you do 2 a month, you leave it, whatever. Because I think what they struggle with is they either do too much or too little. If they do too little, it kills the hype. If they do too much, it completely throws that feeling of wonder and exploration that Pokemon instills in its player base.
I have to agree. And the funny thing is, I was going to say the exact same thing, so get out of my head.
Champion Spirit!
I've known you for too long.
there, right? But yeah, like those little teasers with the Hisuian Zora or Grievard. Grievard was great. I loved the little Grievard tidbit one. That was a fun one. And there was one more that they did, didn't they? I thought they did like a third one.
The Graveyard was in 2 parts, I believe. There was one where they were just out looking for, and then it was when they actually discovered it and it played with them.
I like those little tease bits where it's like, oh, they're going to announce something, but they don't flat out announce it, and then they kind of let you, they let it linger in the air long enough to really get people to talk. And that's really what I think they need to focus on when it comes to this. What they did with Grievard, what they did with Hisuian Zora, those things work because they get the conversation started. They start speculation going. It gets the people who are tech savvy to take that video, analyze it, fix it, tweak it, try to find something in it, trying to figure out what Game Freak is doing. They turned it into a game, and they know that the community will just jump all over it. What I don't want is a 24-hour live stream of a static image and just BS for 24 hours for an 8-second tease.
Well, now you're in my head, because I was going to touch on that as well.
Because I was thinking how cool it would be, still sticking with that the Majora's Mask where they're rebuilding the clock town and the idea that we have to rebuild the tower. What if you get a 24-hour live stream where it is just a day in the life of Lumiose town?
I would hate that, and the only reason is because they wouldn't be able to put enough content in there to make everybody happy. People will be wanting to look for new Pokemon, will want to see, what regional forms, and if they're only going to announce one Pokemon that way, it's just an absolute waste of time. Nobody will tune in. If you're going to show off multiple Pokemon that we haven't seen yet, then you're spoiling the game.
I'm still thinking that we shouldn't be revealing Pokemon during the hype season. What if we use this day in the life of Lumiose Town to show off the Ancestor Kit?
Now, yeah, here's an idea, though. Here's a thought. How about, maybe once a month, they just take a snapshot of a section of the game in Lumiose Tower, no context, just the building, to give as little context as possible, and just kind of go, here, and tease that. Let people discuss what they're seeing. You can omit things like characters and Pokemon. That's not a hard thing to do, especially if you don't want to reveal when is the time period of this particular game, because the thing is that this disagreement is still sparking conversation, and the more you reveal without saying too much, the more that conversation is going to persist, and the more hype that's going to build when this game drops to find out the answer to that one looming question. Because I come from an old town. My hometown is known as Silk City, and some of the buildings are very old, and you can see the construction of 100 years ago. But it's also been very gentrified, so you do have that old and that new, and just walking through the town, you could picture that, without the context of building, of storefronts of buildings, just a very generic look, you could not tell me when this picture was taken, if it was taken in the past or if it was taken in the future. And
so that leads right into something that I was thinking on your idea, not to really cut off, but it jumps in real nice. What if they did pictures based on some of the famous photography that we saw from the 1800s, and they use that as ways of secretly giving us stuff to talk about? I would love that.
I think part of that is, it's a very cool idea. I really like the concept, but I think what they might be trying to do is leave the time period pretty ambiguous, because it's very difficult to identify whether it's past or future from just blue line. So I'm talking about specifically Kalos past or future, so not Hisui past. So it definitely isn't going to be that far back, but just in terms of how Kalos developed.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, again, like I said, doing the whole thing of just leaving things ambiguous, or as ambiguous as possible, while still generating that conversation, I think would go a long way.
Just circling back to marketing, because I've just remembered, I don't know if you guys are aware of the House of the Dragon marketing.
Maybe it's better that we don't know. Chase, why don't you enlighten?
Yeah, please enlighten us.
Honestly, House of the Dragon, a lot better than Game of Thrones. But, so what they did for their marketing now for Season 2, there's now a war between the Targaryen family, and it's split into two factions, Team Black and Team Green. And their whole marketing strategy is based around making a choice on which side you stand with. And what they've done for their marketing is they've CGI'd the different factions' banners on well-known like landmarks and historical buildings and such. So, for example, there's one, I don't know if it's the Golden Gate Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge, but on the towers on either side, it's got one faction's banners, and then at Grand Central Station on the front, it's got the other faction's banners. And I think that could be pretty cool if the Pokemon Company did something similar, but with the Eiffel Tower.
They should have did that for the Yuva and Narada Academy.
Tying it into X's idea of building up the hype with like just certain images of Lumiose Tower's development. They take the Eiffel Tower, because I mean, Lumiose Tower is designed after it, or well, inspired by it. So you have the standard Eiffel Tower in your first picture, with like maybe some bricks or something around it, like alluding to the construction is going to happen. And then each image that precedes that is essentially Lumiose Tower being built around what is the Eiffel Tower, and essentially using the Eiffel Tower as like a core.
His idea there, that would actually be very incredible, and it might work on a conceptual level of that the Pokemon world is at least inspired, somehow built on our history.
It is difficult to really figure out how to handle certain topics like this, considering the fact that, you know, you've got your people who are just kind of like, hey, it's Pokemon, they can do no wrong. And then there's others that are, you know, hey, Pokemon never gets things right. And we try to walk the middle of the road here. You know, we acknowledge the fact that there are some strategies that they want to try and keep up with, but at the same time, we can be critical about how they're handling or mishandling something when it comes to the franchise. And I mean, like, you guys have heard me so many times about certain topics and how I feel about them, and I get very vocal, and I do apologize for that. But you know, again, I'm a stockholder and I'm a lover of the franchise, so I get to see, like, I feel it from both angles. What is it that Game Freak Nintendo is doing that's going to help me in my stock versus as a player what I want to see come out. And it drives me nuts when sometimes the solution in my head and in talking with you guys, we've come up with some great ideas, but it's apparently escapes the companies, you know, and it's
So I think one of the main issues, and it's not about the information involving the games itself, but it's the way that they're trying to handle some of it. A lot of the information about them having the multiple themes and how separate or how connected the different games as they come out are in terms of their marketing is left in the dark for us to kind of just figure out on our own about how well connected these things could be or not. And the ultimate solution, I think, much like how open we are on the Discord and talking to a lot of the people of our community, both, on Discord, like I said, and in the comments, is the transparency. The idea that we just tell us, like, what's going on, give us a platform to feedback. A lot of times they don't even have to listen to what the fan base is saying 100%, but just kind of see where the mindset of the fan base is when they say we're gonna give you releases only in these. They're at the point where they're not even telling us when the announcements are until like a week before they're gonna do an announcement.
And with all that said, let us know what you think about our ideas. Tell us down below how you feel about the current Pokemon news cycle, or lack thereof, and some of the ideas that we kicked around. Tell us how we're doing. Also be sure to share, like, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day. Bye.
But rumors have electrolytes. It's what plants crave.
Au revoir.